All right, this is going to be a clamp-free video. I'm done with clamps for now. You might be glad to hear. Some of you probably aren't glad to hear because, you know, homemade clamps are an interesting topic. I have had lots of requests for review of this saw. I'm not going to do a review. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at it. I've already looked at it actually. In setting it up, I went through everything here. And I'm going to give you my unbiased opinion of the pluses and minuses of this saw. Now, when I say I'm biased, that means that I'm not basing any of this on the fact that I got this saw to do another project with that I'm getting paid for, and it cost me nothing. This is an honest assessment of the build quality and the fit and finish of the saw overall. I want to start with the overall size and weight of the saw. And both of these, I think, are on the positive side. This is not too heavy. It's not too light that it's going to skate around either. It doesn't come on a stand. It has these feet on the bottom here that will grip to, say, a piece of plywood they have set up on sawhorses. So that would make it very handy for doing stuff outdoors. You can quickly pick it up from out of your shed, bring it out there, set it up, slip the battery in, and away you go. You don't have to worry about cords or anything like that. Another thing that I consider a positive with this saw is the table surface here itself is coated with, it's either powder coated or painted or some other finish on the aluminum itself. Raw aluminum is absolutely terrible for a table saw top. I know that from lots of experience using those very cheap table saws that are around this size but are, you know, much crappier. Now when we lift the saw up and have a look underneath at the undercarriage, at the business stuff, you see that everything that's in sight here is aluminum. There's very little plastic at all. Everything like the elevator mechanism, all of that is either steel or aluminum. The gearbox on the motor itself is aluminum. The bevel gears on the inside that raise and lower the blade are all metal. And the mechanism itself moves very smoothly without any effort. There is, however, some slop in the mechanism that raises and lowers. The linear guides on the side here do have a little bit of play in them so that I can move the motor around, but not by an amount that would affect the usability of the saw for the target application, which would be using it outside to build fences or build lawn furniture or do other, you know, fairly rough, not overly intricate woodworking projects with. The tilt mechanism I really like. There are other kinds of saws that use a geared mechanism that gears into a rack on the edge. I hate those. I much prefer to just undo the clamp like that, rotate it up to where I want it to cut to, and then tighten it up. Very fast, very efficient. No messing around with stuff, trying to push it in and engage it in the rack. I really like this. This is the way I have my first homemade table saw, well, the first one you saw on YouTube anyway, set up. And when I build a new table saw, that's what I'll be using again. Unless I come up with something a little bit more sophisticated, just for the sake of doing it. Another thing on the plus side here is the frame of the saw itself. There are plastic panels, yes, but the frame of the saw itself is all welded steel tubes and very solid by the looks of it. I looked it over, I can't see any problems with it. It's certainly a lot more robust than the all plastic enclosures you see on most of the saws this size. This is one that's not going to be a big deal for most people that will use this saw for the intended application, but I really like it, and it's the fact that the insert plate, the throat plate, is actually a ½ inch thick almost. I think it's 7/16, so you can make your own zero clearance inserts for this. And when the blade is lifted up all the way, which I'm about to do, the riving knife still clears the back here, so you have space to, you know, bridge this gap over here to make it one piece solid, so it fits right down over the whole thing and fits in like that. Now, taking out the insert plate again, you can see there's a little switch here that locks it or unlocks it. Put that aside, and on the inside, rather than some plastic shroud, hard plastic shroud, they've got a fabric enclosure here that's actually attached to both parts of the saw to keep the dust from going down that way, and it also keeps the dust from going this way. It's also worth mentioning that the insert plate has screws in 4 locations here to adjust the height, which is very handy. You want to level it up flush with the top of the saw. That makes it very easy. Okay, now on to something that I think is very important for any saw. It doesn't matter how much it is or, you know, how big it is. It's the fence system. This one has what I would consider to be, I don't know, I'm on the fence about the fence actually. It works great, first of all. It works great for what it does, but it is overly complex. It does the fence adjustment in a way that would annoy me a little bit if I was doing it a lot. You can't just quickly move it back and forth like a normal fence. You have to crank it. To the best of my knowledge, I don't see any like rapid movement. I haven't read every part of the instruction manual either, but I've looked it over. I can't see a way to rapidly adjust it. It doesn't do that. But it does have some plus points to it though. It does very positively lock in place, but it does that not on the front here. It does it on the side over here. There's a little paddle thing that you lock it in place. And what that does, it will lock it on the back as well as the front. So the adjustability range for this fence system goes all the way out to, it's a dual scale. And I'll try to show that a little bit better here. It goes out to 20 inches with it in this setting, but then you can move the fence to another location and that'll extend it to 24 inches using the yellow scale on the saw, or actually the white scale on the saw. The yellow scale on the saw is the one for this setting, the first setting. You move the fence by unlocking it from the thing, repositioning it over the other screw, tighten it down, and then you get an extra 4 inches of capacity, which is handy, I guess, if you need that extra 4 inches. Very seldom I would try to cut something that wide on a saw like this. Just an example of the adjustment here. Here it is all the way out to 20 inches on the regular setting. So to bring it back into the blade, you have to wind it. It moves fast enough, and it would, I guess you would get used to it. I just much prefer to rapidly move it in place to make the next setting. Now the fence also has this kind of neat feature right here, and this is an auxiliary part that swings down and locks in place, and that'll get you closer to the blade, but still allow room in here to get, you know, your hands or whatever. I think the main purpose of this smaller fence here is for safer use with the guard system that goes on this saw. Usually, you know, with this tall fence, with that guard system set up, it's very tricky to try to get in there cutting narrower stock and support that work as it's going through the blade. That's the reason why, for the most part, I'm usually against guards on a table saw of any sort. But of course, I'm not alone in that. If you watch most people that use table saws professionally, none of them have guards on there for the most part. There are exceptions, of course. When not in use, the thing flips up over on the other side here out of the way. In general, I couldn't see myself using that too often. First of all, once it swings down, it adds, I think, an extra 2 inches to the thing here. I should just measure that to confirm. Yeah, 2 inches, so that kind of messes up your measurements. So you got to try to do a little bit of math there when you're doing that. Also, it has a little bit of wiggliness to it that could mess up a cut. Potentially, if you're holding the stock up tight against it, it won't be a problem. I just don't think that anything that's this loose should be part of the fence system. I think that once it swings down, there should be some method of locking it tightly in place so that it cannot move at all. Now back to the top again, I have aluminum bar that I use on my jigs to use on a table saw. This thing is precisely 3/4 of an inch thick, or wide I should say, and it fits precisely in the normal table saw slots, but it is very sloppy in this one. Okay, I'll put a battery in there to turn it on to point out another very small gripe, and that's this switch arrangement here, which you have to hold up to press the on button. And then when you let it go, it swings down with enough force to shut the saw off, which is something that, you know, it would take some getting used to, because you have to actually guide it down to make sure that it doesn't do that. And it's very easy to press that button to stop the saw also. So it's a minor gripe, but it's something that would add up over time. I would like to see a little bit more force needed to turn that switch off, or get rid of the paddle thing altogether. I know it's great for safety because, you know, it covers up the on switch when it's down, so there's no chance you can actually turn it on without lifting it up. Also, if for an emergency thing, you can quickly push it without trying to locate the switch. Now, right out of the box, I checked the alignment of everything here, and everything seemed to be very good as far as the blade lining up with the miter slots and the fence lining up with the miter slots. All looks within reason. I'm not using a micrometer for this because, once again, this saw is not meant to be a cabinet saw that you would use in a workshop. It's meant to be used for rougher work. So, last thing I want to do here is actually switch the saw on and cut through a piece of maple. I've got a piece here that matches the cut depth, the maximum depth of the, the saw with this blade in here. I don't think it can take a bigger blade, actually. I think this is an 8 1/4, and that's the maximum size blade. But this cutting depth right here is, I don't want to go into the specs, but that's 2 1/4 inches of hard maple that it'll be cutting through. Well, as you can see, no problem cutting through the 2 1/4 inches of hardwood here, so I don't think I would have a problem at all cutting through, say, 1.5 inches of dimensional lumber. Well, that'll do it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it informative. Would I recommend this saw? Yes, I absolutely would recommend this saw if you need it for the application that it's best suited for. I think that the application that this is best suited for is for working outdoors. If you have a shop and you want to cut up a lot of material and you don't want to mess up your shop and it's a beautiful day outside, it would be great to have one of these things, pull it out, set it up quickly, make all your cuts, let nature take care of the sawdust. Also, if you're just a hobby woodworker and you want that flexibility of a saw that you can bring outdoors, use out there, and also use in your shop, I don't think you could go wrong with a tool like this. The issues I talked about, I don't think would in any way make it less accurate to use as a table saw for general woodworking. The accuracy is not solely dependent on the tool itself. It's more based on your experience and your ability. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was informative, and I'll see you next time.